Hello and welcome to AEC Unplugged. I am so happy that you're here today. My name is Danielle Gray and I'm your host. I currently serve as the Director of Content and Knowledge Resources at SMPS HQ. So thank you for tuning in and joining our what do I want to say? Our fun time here, our human experience here, whatever you want to say. I'm super excited to have you. If this is your first episode or this is your first time joining, AEC Unplugged is really about, yes, we want to talk about the trends, the strategies that impact the AEC industry and the professionals in it, but also we want to connect. And so, how I've been explaining it is, there's tons of AI that we know is important for us to know about, but there's also the HI, which is human intelligence. And that's really important for us to connect, create community, and do all the things that AI can't do, which is really doing some innovative things in a different way. So, thank you for joining. We are excited to have you. If you'd like to say, this sounds kind of fun, I'd love to watch some other episodes, you totally should. We have talked about so many different things, from networking to speaking to wellness to project management, all the things. So please be sure to join in. You can go to the SMPS YouTube to watch those episodes there. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about stories that win. But before we talk about that and get into the episode, there's a few things that we want to share. There's upcoming programming coming up. So so mark your calendar. We have an upcoming town hall on May 7th, The Power of Resilience, which I think is pretty powerful, with Amber Carbrawl. So that will be May 7th. And then we have a webinar, which I really think everyone needs to attend, proposal differentiation, standing out in the sea of same. I think we can all understand that, especially if you are within the marketing MBD realm. So May 8th, tune in for that. There's also an upcoming webinar, which is a learning lab, and this is free for all SMPS members on May 13th. This is going to be sponsored by WorkOrb, from expertise to advantage, leveraging AI for knowledge, preservation, and winning proposals. And look, we just were talking about AI. You got to have the balance. So HI here, AI there. And we also have, for the SMPS Foundation, which if you don't know about the SMPS Foundation, I strongly encourage you to learn more. This is a part of SMPS that is funding research so that we are prepared as business professionals in our industry. So there's a report here, Building Resilience. Speaking of resilience, it's clearly the time. So go ahead and download that trends report. It is available for SMPS members. So also for SMPS members, AI Quarterly Insight. We have a Q2 just full of facts about AI. So this is a 76-page report. And also, if you're like, no, thank you, don't want to read 76 pages, fair. There's an audio report overview. So it's a podcast, so you can kind of listen in your spare time, if that's a thing, to listen to what's going on with AI within AEC. And then we have some report highlights and FAQs that you can dig into as well. So make sure to download that. It is free for SMPS members. Also, we have this AI governance policy, and this is actually templates for your firm. If you're like, we want to get an AI, but we really don't know where to go or where to start. These are templates, government policies that you can governance policies that have that are a comprehensive framework for ethical, responsible, and compliant use of AI within your firm. So look into that. They are available in PDF, Word, and already formatted for you. So all you're doing is filling in some blanks, and strongly recommend if you're looking for some structure for your AI governance policy. And also SMBS awards. I mean, we're doing all this work. It's good to be rewarded as well. So we are recognizing emerging leaders, business developers, and marketing innovation firms, which within the AEC industry. So The deadline is May 1st to submit. So if you're thinking about it, or you know someone that you think would be really great, we are going to recognize those individuals at Amplify AEC, which I feel like that leads into the next one. Is that? Oh, look at that. Boom. Amplify AEC. If you don't know, oh, I don't want to say you better ask somebody. That would be too easy. Either way, Amplify AEC, August 6th through the 8th in Columbus, Ohio. It's going to be great. This is our national conference, and this is a place that you can network with people that are like-minded, also doing very similar things as you. And there's tons of tracks. There's tons of breakouts that are really be helpful to your professional development. So be sure to register now. That's in August. And then if you are interested in diving even deeper into AEC.ai, or AI in general for the AEC industry, go to AEC.ai, our artificial intelligence conference. So this is May 1st to the 2nd, so it's coming. So if you are around the DC area and or know that you want to be in this conference, you can fly in from anywhere. Okay, it's DC, so we would love to have you there. And also, if you are not able to get to this one, we do have one on the West Coast in October. So check out our website for more details about AEC.ai, and we'll give you all the information, but you don't want to miss it. It's in person, it's live, it's hands-on, and I think the way that we probably should be interacting with AI right now. So please, I don't know if I said this, tell me where you're joining from. Also, leave that in the comments, not just because I want to see where everybody's coming from, but also to connect with others that are watching as well. So go ahead and put that in the comments while we get this episode started. All right, so many words. All right, so today we are talking about stories that win, which is really storytelling. So let's get into it. I would like to introduce our guest for today, Ben Culbreth, content strategist and content writer at Culbreth Copywriting. How's it going, Ben? Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Danielle. I'm doing great. Super glad to be here. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm
Yeah.
doing good. It's Tuesday. We're doing all right. And you are in Columbia, South Carolina. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yep, dead center
Nice,
of the state.
nice. And how is the weather?
It's summertime on April 22nd. So
Yeah,
just like most of the Southeast, it's way
exactly.
hotter than you want it to be, but it's kind of nice too. So we're trying to.
No, 1000%. I asked because I knew that, and I'm
Yeah,
in Atlanta for those that don't
yeah,
know, and it is, yeah, it's summer, so
yeah,
it happened fast. It happened fast. So Ben, every time I start my episodes, I think it's always interesting to hear how people found their way into the AEC industry. It's never a straight shot. Like at 6 years
yeah.
old, they were dreaming of this.
Right.
So tell me how you or how you found your way into the AEC industry.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a funny story, like kind of a little bit of full circle kind of thing going on.
Mhm.
So when I was in college, I started out as a history major, ended up switching to marketing. That's the whole thing. But my freshman year, my school had sent out an email and they said, we're looking for writers to help us with some marketing projects. Um, I like to write. I saw an email that they were paying. I was like, I'll sign up for this. So long story short, I ended up working pretty closely with the school's interior design department. So kind of AEC related, in the space there, and interviewing students, alumni, professors, talking to them about their experience in the industry, like what the program did, trying to essentially promote that degree. So if you had said AEC to me at that point, like you said, at 18, I wouldn't have known what it meant. And then kind of from there, got down the road. When I started doing this professionally, doing a lot of content strategy and writing, sort of just started working with AEC firms, and we got along really well, which is always the mark of a good client relationship. And just enjoyed the work. I found the industry very fascinating. Actually, when I was a kid, I kind of wanted to be an architect, but somebody told me at one point there was a lot of math involved, and I'm really bad at math. I now have architects tell me that that's kind of a lie. So
Uh,
maybe I missed my calling, but I get to tell stories about them, so that's pretty fun.
awesome.
But yeah, I just kind of found that I love the industry and kind of wanted to learn more about it and dive into it. And now At this point, I almost exclusively work with AEC clients. Still have a few outside the industry, but pretty much, solely focus on AEC work. So I've loved it.
Nice. So before we get into the thickness of the storytelling in AEC, I'm curious of when did you know that you were a storyteller, a
Mm.
writer? What was that? I mean, like as a full on career choice. What did that look like
Yeah.
for you?
Well, so I always loved to read. Like as a kid, I loved to read. Always had a book. In terms of the storyteller, there was like some early promise. Actually, when I was like probably 8, maybe 9 years old, I wrote some Shrek fan fiction when the movie was
Okay.
pretty big, and I guess there was enough there that there was some early promise for me to turn this into a career at some point. But had some super good mentors along the way in terms of a high school professor or high school teachers. We had a super good journalism program. So kind of always had this itch to have a creative career. I just didn't know what that looked like.
Mhm.
I'm not a super skilled graphic designer at all, but I kind of always had a knack for the written word a little bit. So
Nice.
um, didn't really fully pursue that as a career until a few years out of college. But once I did, I was like, this is kind of it. So I've really loved it, and I'm fortunate to be able to do this work.
Nice, nice. So let's kind of start talking about as it relates to AEC. I think I've seen a lot of mixed reviews of I think people are,
Mhm.
especially in this industry, are starting to really buy into content because
Mhm.
it took a minute. I was talking about speaking about content development in 2017 at one
Mhm.
of the regionals, and people were like, "Oh, that you were awesome. That was so entertaining." But no, thank you.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me about one, how was that for you in getting, some of the AEC firms to kind of buy in? But also, if you could share an example of how a firm has used storytelling to produce business, because I don't know if they always think that they can produce business from this.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. I think for a lot of firms, even outside the AEC industry, there's been kind of a slow burn to like really dive into this because I think some of it, like it's a pretty steep investment, right, of time to tell
Mhm.
really good stories, and I don't always know that there's this immediate payoff that we want. You publish something one day, and then the next day you have business from it. It's probably not going to work like that. If it does, you crushed it, and we want to learn from you and what you're doing. But in terms of getting adoption from it, to me, it's really kind of showcasing the results of what has worked well on the storytelling side, and being able to tell people, if you invest in this content strategy and we identify the people that you're trying to work with, and we find out the stories that are going to resonate with them, this is going to pay off for you. It's going to be a slower burn, but it is going to work. And a couple of examples, you kind of mentioned, sharing there that I like to tell folks who may be like, is this really worth it? Do I want to do this? I'll tell you about a couple of folks I worked with, and that's not to like tout anything that I did. I truly think it was like an investment driven by them.
Mhm.
Um, One firm I worked with had this really, they kind of had this strategy of wanting to engage folks out of state. They're in South Carolina. They said, we want to attract some clients we can work with remotely who are doing projects here in South Carolina. And we put together a strategy around interviewing their clients that they had worked with. Their process was really unique, talking about what it was like to work with them, talking about issues that came up, and kind of how they all work together to pull a project together. And so we wrote the very first one, published it, and within 2 weeks, I had gotten in a meeting with them, and they're like, "We've got people reaching out to us, prospects, saying like, we read this. This is what we're looking for. Can we talk to you?" So that was a pretty quick turnaround with them. There was some good SEO behind that. There was another part of the team with that. But the story really resonated with people. And there's a similar example with another client I worked with, very extensive investment in storytelling, and put together a story interviewing one of their clients, and they had folks telling them, reading these stories are what really made us decide to go with you. And I think especially in the AEC industry, where many times the services are very similar in terms of how they're delivered or what is offered, being able to tell these stories in a compelling way of the client experience, of how things are done by the firm, are really what can separate you in terms of being able to win business as opposed to another firm.
So that's interesting. I'm like, I love the examples you shared. Can you share like how was that story shared? Was it on the
Mhm.
website? Because there's also you have the written word, and a lot of people are leaning into video. So can you kind of
Mhm.
share the benefits of the written word too? Because I think we all just kind of jump into video these days as well.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And if you have, if you have the budget to do video along with writing the stories, like you're in a super sweet spot. But
Right.
yeah, I think, when you're actually writing the stories, they lend themselves really well to being able to be distributed. And that's as much of the equation or more of than writing the story. You can write the best customer story that's ever been written, but if you don't have a good strategy to get it out there to the people who need to read it, it's just not gonna get in front of the folks that you want. So yeah, they both of them pushed it out on social, pretty extensive social campaigns, pulling quotes from those
Nice.
interviews, putting those in there. One of them has kind of like a portfolio book that they actually printed. I know that's fairly rare now, but also on the website. So being able to drive traffic to the website, because for both of them, that was the primary point of capture where they wanted to be able to get people to reach out to them. So most of it would all lead back in some form or another to try to, get them to get a prospective client to reach out.
Yeah, I think that's so important for us to remember and
Mhm.
recall is that a story can be used in so many different ways, like
Yeah.
on a LinkedIn post, grabbing pieces, graphically creating some different things. Like it's so robust when you have a story like that. So that's really interesting. So that leads me into you recently wrote a blog for SMPS Insight. So for those that don't know, we have a blog. We have a blog. Um, and your blog is called Three Types of Stories AEC Firms Should Be Telling.
Mhm.
What inspired you to write this piece, and what do you hope AEC professionals learn from this blog?
Yeah, I think storytelling is overwhelming, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do. So I think for a lot of AEC marketing professionals and marketers in general, the thought of approaching storytelling along with everything else that they have on their plate is daunting. So I wanted to write this to kind of break down storytelling into three components, and you can read everything in the blog, but essentially I put it in three buckets. So one's the client story, the community story, and then the firm story. And I wanted to frame it that way to make this whole storytelling thing a lot more approachable for people. So, you know, when you say, I want to be able to tell good stories, like that's a big pie in the sky thing. But when you can actually say, oh, I want to tell a better story about our client experience and what it's like for people to work with us, and here's how I'm going to do it within this framework, that makes it a lot easier. Or if I want to tell more stories about how, our work impacts the community, the things we design that have a public benefit, here's how I can do that. Here are the questions I can ask. That's sort of why I wrote the blog, and how I try to lay it out in that post is so that people can say, here's how I need to be thinking through this in terms of these stories. And it's not just some overwhelming thing that I should be doing or could be doing. It's now, okay, I have these stories and I can approach this in a way. And they don't have to be these super long 2,500 word things either. I love long form copy as a writer or long form content, but it doesn't have to always be that. These can be shorter pieces. These can be social media posts. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it, kind of like you mentioned earlier. And in terms of, what I want people to take away from it, it is that storytelling is an activity that will drive results for your firm if you invest in it. Being able to utilize that skill and get those stories out there, it is something that's going to pay off because it's going to get in front of the right people. There's other components to go into it beyond the writing, but if you're able to write stories that are compelling to the people you want to work with or the people you want to hire, if it's a firm story, that is going to attract those people to your firm, and you're going to see results from that.
Do you think that I love that breakdown that you have. Do you think that firms typically lean into one of those types of stories?
Yes, sort of. I would
Okay.
say firms mostly lean into telling the story about themselves.
Right.
So
Right.
they will often tell how they approach the work, which is fine, and
Mhm.
you can do that. I would say, through all of these different types of stories, you can let how you approach projects shine through without it being all about you, sort of thing.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't think firms tell the story about themselves very much, and I think that's a very compelling story. I think the people behind the scenes doing or not even really behind the scenes, but the people doing the work on these projects are really interesting. They may not always think that their work, they just think it's their work, right? But
Mhm.
if you can pull those stories out of them and like the really unique things that happen, I really do believe like AEC industry has some of the best untold stories of any industry out there. Like they're so interesting. So if you can unpack those, I think you can garner a lot of just like public interest in like your brand and in your firm, about the work that you're doing.
That's so interesting. So I had a really interesting conversation I was in New York for the ENR Awards,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, hearing all these amazing stories about these projects.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are 18-month that we had to move this, or
Mm-hmm.
everything was gonna fall, and I
Yeah.
didn't sleep for weeks. And I mean, you don't always get that from a project
Yeah.
profile, or and I think that that's the storytelling that I think is can be missing,
Mm-hmm.
and or not always making its way from the team to the marketing team.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on, or how do you get the stories out of people? Because there's, if you're not talking to the people that are doing it, you don't know what happened.
Yeah. That's a big struggle. And I talk to a lot of marketers about that. And that's a tough thing to overcome a little bit because it kind of, I think it depends on your firm's dynamics a little bit. Like what are the relationships and interactions? But, the people I have talked to and worked with that are best at this, and that I try to do in my own work is really being curious about the work yourself. And that can be as simple as talking to somebody in the office and just asking questions about, what are you working on? Or like, what are you really excited about? Or what was weird about this project that wasn't normal? Just kind of, I don't want to say, I mean, they're probing questions, but, trying to unpack what they're doing a little bit.
Mhm.
And it sounds kind of cliche and it might even sound like you're going to annoy them. People like to talk about their work, particularly folks, they may not think it's that interesting, but as you get them to start talking about it, they're going to start, really giving you good details. And somewhere along the way in that, you're going to find a nugget of information that's like, that's a little piece of gold that I'm going to hang on to, or we're going to dive into and tell more of that story. The other thing I would say is if you can get out on the job site, if your firm's supporting active job sites, go out there, put on the hard hat and the vest and just like ingrain yourself in it a little bit. I think just by showing that you're interested in what they're doing and their work, that's going to open them up to be able to tell a little bit more about what they're doing and see you as invested in their process. And that way you're able to find out more of what's going on that you may not, be able to do if you're in the office most of the time.
Absolutely. And I know that there's a lot of marketers that don't always make it out. And I think, if you can try to make it to a job site, I think it's very it's informative in so many different ways
Mhm.
for you to see how they're working. So if you can,
Mhm.
highly suggest that. And I always find, depending on the different personality types, it feels like talking to and asking about specific questions, like about a project, because I remember as like, so like, what's going on? And they're like, I don't know, nothing, so I had
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the question, the questions like you're saying,
Yeah.
I think the more detailed they are, I've found to have a little bit more,
Yeah.
um, they go a little bit longer, and I
Yeah.
actually get some content from it.
Yeah.
So this is so great, so great. So please, if you haven't seen the blog or read the blog, be sure to read Ben's blog. It is up on the SMPS Insights. It's on the smps.org website. So with that, I want to close with this last question. What words of wisdom would you like to share with AEC growth professionals?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in this era. We talked about it, or you talked about it a little bit earlier, Danielle, with like some of the programming that's going on. We're in a pretty intense AI era, and I think there's a lot of tendency to use AI tools, to help with writing and help with things like that. And I definitely think there's a time and place for AI tools. Like I enjoy using them to support my work, but I would tell people, really invest some time in reading and writing as a marketer. I think those are two skills that are not going to abandon you. And even as we, as these tools get better and, they're able to write better or do those components of our job, you can't really substitute the kind of intangible skill of being able to think and communicate clearly that you get from writing and reading on a regular basis. So to me, no matter how good the AI tools become or what they can do for us, I think if you're able to write effectively, you'll always have a seat at the table in terms of being able to showcase your ideas and make an impact in your job and in your life too. I think those are just two really special life skills, and they're a gift. Like I love reading and writing, and I think it's something that we can all take with us throughout our lives as being something that's really special and impactful.
I love that. So don't forget to be human,
Yeah.
everybody. Read and write. That's important, and don't lose that skill. So thank you so much, Ben, for being here. Great conversation. And again, make sure to read his blog. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. So look, it's another episode of AEC Unplugged. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Ben's his approach, especially as it relates to the different types of stories we're telling. And I'd ask you, what types of stories are you telling? Are you telling the same story over and over again? Are you thinking about the client? Are you thinking about the people that you're hiring? All of these are important, and thinking about all the types of stories, I think is important for us in our career. So again, um, I also really took from read, read and write, because gosh, what would happen if we didn't? I don't know. I don't know. So again, we're HI over here, human intelligence. Strongly encourage you to read. I heard a quote that said, someone that doesn't read is no better than someone that can't read. And so I think that really stuck with me. So I hope it sticks with you too. Now, before we go, it wouldn't be right if I didn't remind you of our upcoming programming. So please join us on May 7th for a upcoming town hall. This is available for all SMBS members, The Power of Resilience. And then we have a webinar on May 8th, Proposal Differentiation, Standing Out of the Sea of Same. We also have a Learning Lab webinar on May 13th. This is available complimentary for all SMPS members, brought to you by WorkOrg. And we always are pushing and want to share such great information within these SMPS Foundation reports. So be sure to go by the smps.org bookstore there. And then we have quarterly insights. Again, this is a book of reports for the Q2, so that we can look ahead, where are we now, and how can we prepare as it relates to AI within our industry specifically. So you got reports, you got audio, and then also we have an AI governance policy. This is templates. So again, templates that you can use for your policy. If you don't know where to start, this is a great starting point. There's options for HR, IT, marketing. Each of those have their own policy, so make sure to look for that as well. We have the SMPS award program, so be sure. We have the Of the Year awards, and those are going to be those submittals are due on May 1st. So if you know someone, or you yourself, I'm not sure, can you do that? I think so. But if you know someone, please. Okay, yes, you can do it yourself. Shout out to producer Devin. She's awesome. She always gets me together. I love her. This is my favorite part. Aren't we great here? I think so. Okay, so SMPS awards programs, be sure to submit by May 1st. And then those awards will actually be presented at Amplify AEC, which is in August 6th through the 8th in Columbus, Ohio. And by the way, if you haven't been to Columbus, Ohio, it's pretty cool. Okay. Like, I know it's like, oh, Columbus. Yes. They have some awesome restaurants, especially around the hotel. A lot of art, a lot of culture. So, and it's the hometown of Jenny's ice cream. Thank you, Devin. I mean, come on. How can you beat that? And then coming up May 1st through the 2nd, really, really right around the corner, we have our AEC.ai conference for those specifically in the AEC industry, that you can learn right there, hands-on, how to use AI and how you can use it for your firm. So that's it. We did it. Another episode. And so I hope you were inspired. I hope you are moved by Ben, and also just in general of thinking outside the box as a human, and inspired to read, to write, to do all the things. So if all that being said, if this did not help you think differently, I hope that it helped you want to become something different. So thank you again for joining AEC Unplugged, and we will see you next time. Actually, next week. Bye bye, y'all.